We all rise to the pledge. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mrs. Fryerick?
Here.
Mr. Posnell?
Here.
Mr. Robinson?
Here.
Mr. Sanders?
Here.
Mr. Scalette?
Here.
Mr. Schrader?
Here.
Mr. Sears?
Here.
Mr. Toman? Mr. Watts?
Reminder, please silence your cell phones during the meeting, and this will be your first opportunity for public comment. All comments and questions will be addressed to the President. Board and staff members will not normally respond to comments or questions during the meeting unless recognized by the President for this purpose. Comments will be limited at the discretion of the President to 5 minutes or less. Do you have any comments? Okay. Thank you. You have the link to the regular monthly meeting of September 23rd. Are there any changes or corrections? I think they can be submitted as they are. We had the resignation of a board member, and I would like to move to accept the resignation of Kenneth H. Watts as a member of the Board of School Directors for York Suburban School District, pursuant to his letter dated September 25th of 2019, with an effective date of September 25th, 2019. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments, questions? We have a roll call vote, please.
Posnell?
Here, yes.
Sears?
Yes.
Sanders?
Yes.
Fryerick? Yes. Schrader?
Yes.
Scalette?
Yes.
Robinson?
Yes, with regret. With regret.
Oh, yeah, that's good. I like that with regret.
So, we have started the process for filling the vacancy. I believe it's Friday at noon that we will cut off applications. Correct. The applicants will then be checked to make sure they meet residency requirements. The resumes will come to us, and we will have a special board meeting Monday night to pick a candidate. What I shared with you were the questions we used at the last session. So I'm open to suggestions to delete, add, or change, however you see fit.
I just wanted to ask somebody, why are you applying now when we just had a primary election and you didn't seek nomination? Yeah, something like that, some rationale for this is just an easier, different way of getting on board.
That's not a bad idea.
Other thoughts, questions?
If I have these are the questions that were asked the last time there's an open seat?
It wasn't easy digging them out either.
Actually, John, number 3, probably we could tag Ellen's concern onto number 3. What prompted your interest in seeking a seat on the board now as opposed to running in the general election?
I'm good with that.
You're gonna, number 6 needs to be updated.
Okay, what do you want to say?
Well, I don't think the latter part of it, the last 2 years, students have taken their lives.
Yeah, just would you take it out, or?
I think the theme of the question is fine. I think the first part of the question and the last sentence, or first part of the question is fine. That middle thing is obviously is not. I hope it's not correct.
No, it's not.
And
Actually, it would only require a simple update from 2 years to 3 years.
you could do it that way too.
Take out that second sentence and change the 2 to 3? Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, the second sentence is,
Oh, okay, because, yeah, I guess it is,
Just
yeah.
leave that, why don't you just,
So it's either change it to 3 years or eliminate the second sentence, I think is what people have discussed.
well, leaving it in sort of reiterates the reality, sad though it is, but if we eliminate it, I don't know, it's not as in your face if we eliminated that altogether, but if we changed it to 3 years instead of 2 years, then, you know, it's still emphasizing the reality.
Yeah.
Is that your, yeah.
So am I just changing to,
Right.
Works for me.
That makes it accurate.
James, you good with that?
Yeah, I'm just, because we have depression and suicidal ideation, and I feel like we're loading a question versus prone to outside stresses, or, like, I feel like we're going to the extreme with the question versus, you know, there's general stresses outside of academic requirements. Stresses could come in many forms which don't ultimately result in suicide. It could result in addiction. It could result in a number of different things. I guess I just want to make, was the intent of the question at that time to talk about general stresses, or was it to zero in and bring to light, like...
I believe the last time that we did this, we had just had 2 instances, so it was truly a question of, you know, death and
Right.
suicide. Now, it's stretched out over 3 years, so I guess, is that a relevant question, or should it be rewritten, you know?
Is your thinking it's too in your face? I'll use
I
that
think it's
phrase.
too in your face. I would be more interested to hear what the candidates' views are on general stresses in the academic environment today versus answering a, does this lead to suicide question. That's where my mind's going. That's my point of view.
that's fine, I mean, if you just want, you know, ask them how,
So recent data from the youth survey suggests significant stresses in the daily life of students, something like that, and then go on to the, what would you do about that?
What's your perception of it? What?
Mr. Robinson, you good with that? I think you raised this a few years ago.
Yeah, okay, that's okay. I think we should take a little more care on the phrasing of the first sentence, though.
Okay.
Because the PAYS data still indicates that a significant number of students are prone to depression.
Yeah, I agree. I'd leave that first sentence
Yeah.
as is and create,
It actually chops suicidal ideation.
remove that?
You could chop that if we're trying to walk it
Yeah,
back from the
okay.
in-your-face
Okay.
stance.
I mean, I frankly don't have a problem because suicide is pretty in your face and it's real and it happens.
How about if I say significant numbers are prone to depression and experience stress in daily activities and lives? Something like that?
I'd say something like increasing levels of,
okay.
Okay.
put some context.
You write this down for me, right, Wendy? Because I won't be able to read my own writing.
That way, if somebody's found this from the last time, it's like changing the test answers from one period to the next, right? Not that anybody here would have done
And I was going to say, do you think you have experience?
Well,
Maybe.
Well, this brings up a question I had. We're okay with having these questions be out there. It's not like a pop test. She said with a question mark at the end of her sentence.
well, that's why we're discussing in an open session.
This is an open session.
My
These are in the
recommendation
record.
was going to be we email these directly to the candidates.
Right,
This is not a beauty pageant.
We need
want
some
them to
thought.
think about the answers.
right. Yep. I just wanted to clarify that we're all on the same page, that these are going to be questions that are, you know, open-ended
I
and,
mean, I believe the purpose of having this open selection is to have an open discussion.
and for the candidates to be prepared, it's not a test of their spontaneity. Okay.
So you're saying you're going to send these to the candidates, are we going to actually ask them these questions, or are they going to come with ready, prepared answers and just rattle them off, question one, question two?
Well, I think realistically, if you look at, if we have 10 people, we won't be able to ask 8 questions to 10 people. So what we've got to do is kind of decide who's going to ask what, and we mix it up so that different candidates.
Previously, we've asked them each to respond to each question.
I don't think
Yeah, we
we.
did. Yeah, we did. I've got it
remember?
down, I've got
Yeah,
it.
you did.
Yeah, we did. I've got it down here, who asked which question anyway, you know.
I know who asked which, but
But did you ask them to all, the
Yes,
same question?
we
all?
I think we
said,
did,
yes, and
yeah.
they all responded,
Yeah.
you know.
It's actually number 6 was the
You
trick
guys pulled the
question.
candidates out. They
that's right.
They
that's right,
agreed to go
that's right,
sit in
you're right,
the,
you did. So
in the teacher's room.
Candidates didn't hear the other discussions.
And that-
That's right.
And that was, it's gonna be a long night.
Well, it is, no matter how you do it, it's going to be, so, yeah, we kind of have to decide that too, if they come ready prepared and.
But okay, now to backtrack, again, I'm not stating an opinion here so much as I'm asking for clarification. If they already have the questions, what's the point in having it just be a single person being interviewed and the other people being removed from the room?
I think it's a different process. I think it's a different process if they all have
Do
the
you know what I'm
questions.
asking, John?
I do, and I'm just thinking, even though they're all prepared, maybe it is better for one at a time to speak, so that, you know,
Yeah, it
I
really-
liked what he said, you know.
Of something.
You get
Yeah.
a chance, if you're the 3rd, 4th, or 8th candidate,
Yeah,
to tweak your answer.
yeah.
Or to admit that everything, sometimes somebody would say, everything I would have said has already been said, and I thought that, I always liked that because that was a very honest answer.
So I kind of like sending them out of the room.
Here's a consideration I think we should consider. It's a public meeting, and we're going to ask somebody who is a resident to leave a public meeting.
That was at their, last time we,
Conversation
Yeah.
2 years ago,
Yeah.
and it was the
I believe we left it open.
unanimous selection
Yeah.
of the candidates to leave
Yeah,
the
and
room,
you
because
can-
they felt that it would be,
You could ask them, and they could all agree.
that's what it took.
That's
It
what we
wasn't
did last
So are
imposed.
we then coercing them?
No, it wasn't imposed.
No, all it takes is one to say no. And it becomes.
And them all, we're going to have them, ask them to give a minute or two opening statement, right?
Right. Well, I'm guessing we would be on solid legal ground if that's what we did before. But is it worth a question to council to make sure that we're not, we don't want to violate any
I think council will be there.
yeah.
Same
And I
conversation,
think that they,
almost
supplied that
exactly
answer to you last
came up.
time, from what I've.
Say
heard.
again, I'm sorry.
Council supplied that answer to you last time. If they'll agree,
Yeah,
that's okay.
okay.
And I don't believe that's changed, but we can verify.
Yeah, I just,
So as a point of information, so far, we have 8 applicants. Cutoff is noon on Friday. We'll see.
Are we going to decide now who's going to ask these questions, or think up an 8th one, so that everybody asks questions, or what do you want to do here? The 8 of us. Yeah. I'm assuming everybody's going to be able to make the meeting on the 14th. Is that a reasonable assumption? Yeah, looks like everyone.
So I guess, does it really matter since they've already got the questions? Who asked the question?
Absolutely no, none at all. I mean, you can read until you're bored, and then get somebody else to, read or whatever, it doesn't matter. It's just, we had them assigned, so we knew who was going to do what, and just, kind of went around the table.
now the last time we did this, Joel, you were on the panel of applicants, am I remembering that correctly? Yeah. And we very boneheadedly chose you. No.
That's how I felt. How did that happen?
go down in the annals of the public records here.
This answer 2 years later.
He knows I'm teasing.
Well, we could always have them sing the alma mater.
Oh, gosh.
There'd be nobody yelling.
Or not.
Would that be a way to disqualify?
Like, why not?
I'm just looking at this, is there anything, there's some new blood here than the people who created these questions the last time. Is there any aspect we're missing here from these 7 questions?
The first one. It's kind of a loaded question in my book. You're interviewing somebody for a board seat on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your suburban school district?
What if I said 1? What would that say?
You really don't want to be there.
Or I'm here to turn you
Necessarily.
around.
Yeah, well,
And I have suggestions, here's my suggestion.
but then, yeah, that would be, I think we should make that more forceful.
Okay.
What?
Suits me. What would you say?
How would you improve that score?
Rather than ask them what the score is, ask them how they would improve the score?
Score it, and if it's a low score, specifics as to why they feel it's low and how they would turn that around. That might be a little bit more precise. If I say the district, it's a 3, what would you do to turn it around? Well, first, I think you have to know why I think it's a 3. Not that I think it's a 3.
And remember, you want to be reasonable, what are we giving them, 2 minutes, a minute and a half to answer these questions? It's not like they're going to have time for a...
Yeah, but if they have them beforehand, if they have time to
But
prepare.
they only have a minute to answer each question, or 90 seconds, or whatever it is that we're going to give
So
them.
if each person gets 10 minutes total, a 2-minute opening and answering the questions, that's 80 minutes right now. And it's going to be more, so, yeah.
There's time between as well, John.
Yeah, there's travel and, so. Other thoughts?
So you're looking for rationale, Rich, between the
Yeah.
2 sentences?
Yeah.
What is the score? Explain your thinking, and then what would you do?
What is the score? Why do you think it's that? And what would you do to turn it around and change it?
Yeah, maybe not even give them a rating score of 1 to 10. Just ask them how they would rate it. Leave it a little bit more open-ended.
So they could give it an academic grade, a 1, 2, 3, 4, A, B, C, D, as opposed to this
Leave that up to
scale.
them. And, you
Okay.
know, as far as the time limit goes, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, because being able to formulate your thoughts with precision and brevity is a good thing, I think.
That's something we can all benefit from doing around here.
No. So,
No comment.
how would you rate the school district? Why? And what would you do to change or improve it?
Yes, that's perfect. Couldn't have put it better.
Okay. Are we happy with that? So we're ready for Monday night.
So you're going to put all these, and you're going to, will you send these back out to us? Could you
Yep.
send them back out
Yep.
when she's got me in your order, we'll have those.
We can do that. Or Wendy can do that.
Thank you, Wendy.
When do you think you would have these?
I think the timeline said Friday afternoon, right?
Friday afternoon.
Friday afternoon.
3:30, 4 o'clock, or would I like a copy rather than just have?
I would think they'll be ready till 3:30.
How quick you can check the voting rolls, I guess.
And I've been
She's
checking.
already done.
Oh, you've been doing it,
I've been
okay,
checking that
good.
As they come in, oh.
Good deal.
Very efficient, that one.
Dr. Williams, you're up.
Thank you. Well, folks, we're looking for some direction from you about how we're going to proceed going forward as far as the facilities are concerned. We floated the concept of grade level consolidation to try to maximize our resources and provide consistency for instruction and provide some collaboration among all the teachers at the grade level. We provided some data about how the practitioners feel about the concept, and as you may recall that about, I think it was 72% of them believed that it was in the best interest of the kids. So we're looking for not a vote, but some direction from you. We don't need you to commit to a vote one way or the other, because what we decide tonight doesn't necessarily mean that we're locked into that forever going forward. If there's some compelling reason to change, we can do that. But we need some direction from you as to whether we're going to keep the current configuration or we're going to go down the path of grade level consolidation.
So if we go down that path, what you're looking for is a charge from us to take a look at it and come back with specific proposals of how this might work for us to react to and vote on.
Well, I've pretty much given a proposal how it
Yeah.
would look,
Yeah.
so.
But then there were questions about K through 2.
Well, there could be, yeah. I mean, the direction from you tonight could be some variant of what we recommended.
I just thought, discussed a little bit at facilities meeting, that maybe these weren't hard votes, but more of a consensus
Right.
kind of thing moving forward, as because knowing full well that what we decide tonight could be changed by some other factor and
Could be some compelling reason to make a change.
change because it doesn't fit with, with what we.
But the compelling reason wouldn't be because we want to. It'd have to be based on something significant.
The 28% were not in favor of the grade level consolidation. Was it an all or nothing proposition to them?
That
In other words,
question,
leave
yeah,
it
but
like it is, or do total or partial consolidation? How was it put to them?
It wasn't put to them in terms of partial consolidation or anything like that. It was just really one basic, simple question. Do you favor consolidating grade levels?
And the response was a simple yes or no?
You didn't
No
get any other
rationale.
feedback, no.
There was some commentary. Do any of my colleagues remember what some of the commentary was? It was all over the place.
Yeah, it ranged, greater consistency, grade level activities, departmentalizing, wouldn't say they should, the actual question read, should all students of the same grade be instructed in the same building? That was the way the question read, yes or no. 71.9% as a yes, 28.1% as a no, out of the 64 responses. And again, as Dr. Williams said, it was kind of all over. I think there's pros and cons to each. It's really hard to give a flat yes or no. Yes, I feel that there's greater influence between the two groups, depending on the reason. So that's why we didn't include the comments, because they were all a lot of kind of narrative about specifics.
64 represent a substantial number of the teachers involved in the primary grades. Is that all of them? I don't even know how many.
Not all of them, but it's a pretty
K to 5, we surveyed K to 5, so you're looking pretty close to all of them.
I figured it was, but I just wanted, was just kind of curious whether it really was.
The response rate's a lot higher than what's considered valid.
Yeah. I have no problem with the consolidation and realignment. I'm more curious as to how we're going to do that, but that's the discussion for another week or another.
Yeah, conceptually, I think it's the right way to go.
Yeah. How we master that is.
You're kind of nodding. Yeah, this is just are we comfortable with this concept? Let's move to the next topic.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean we can't go back and revisit it if something doesn't say that we're right, but this is a decision point to allow us to move down the road. So I'm comfortable continuing with the discussion under the assumption that we're going to look at consolidation of K through 5 grade levels.
Yeah, I have an open mind to it as well. I think that survey, appreciate the district doing that, and I think that's very helpful. But of that sort from the teachers, I think could continue to be helpful on this matter. Certainly, at a high level of abstraction, it sounds open about. And I'm interested then in the details, keep K through 2 the same, and then have it kick in at 3rd grade, or have it all across all 12 grades. I take it that that's where the conversation will go, would be to consider these different ideas.
But we could decide that right now.
Gotcha, okay.
Consolidation.
Do you want to continue that discussion tonight, Dr. Williams, or we just kind of sort of think?
I wouldn't mind getting some viewpoints tonight on that particular issue. So I think what you said is consolidation. Some of you are uneasy about consolidating all of those 5 grades or 6 grades. So maybe it would be helpful for us to hear some viewpoints.
Well, I've said on record on a couple of occasions, I think that I have concerns about our youngest students having to travel from one side of the district to the other. I would be more comfortable if we could have east side little ones and west side little ones, and then I wouldn't have a problem with consolidation of the upper middle or upper grades of elementary school. But I do have some reservations about kindergartners and first graders traveling from one side of the district. I mean, I used the analogy before from, the far reaches on the west side of Wyndham Hills over to the far reaches of the, eastern side of the district to, the Home Depot area. What?
All 11 miles. We were just laughing about distance.
I happily, I understand being outvoted, it's fine, but I still have a reservation about it, and maybe it's irrational, but, a little more of a traditionalist on that, so.
Is it unreasonable to ask the administration to tell us what the costs and impacts are of all versus 3 through whatever?
No, exactly, yeah. Again, I'm one vote, and I just, call me crazy, I just have a little bit of a reservation about that. Could I get over it? Do they do it elsewhere? All of those, yes, certainly, but you're asking my opinion, and I'm giving it to you.
I would say that I kind of piggyback pretty close to what Lois Ann is saying, and I've been sitting here trying to figure out some numbers, and I have kind of mentioned this to Dr. Williams. I'm kind of comfortable leaving our two K-1-2 buildings that we have, so the little ones are not going back and forth each day. And then I'm looking at 3-4 in one building, 5-6 in another, and then 7-8 at the middle school, which we know it can more than handle that. I've been trying to look at the numbers and see how it divides up and see which buildings could hold what. And if I do 3-4 at Indian Rock and I do 5-6 at East York, it's not perfectly balanced, but it kind of works, I think. 7-8 at the middle school, and then our high school, which may or may not need some help with its increasing numbers. I don't know how that's going to look at the high school.
It's not that simple with the grades in terms of...
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm trying to do something. One, it kind of saves the feeling of and again, Dr. Williams doesn't agree, neighborhood school, which we don't really have. Indian Rock is way out there, but people are, from their neighborhoods, go to those schools together. And certainly East York is more neighborhood, the middle school, they're just, and Yorkshire certainly is more of a neighborhood school probably than East York. Those two are more than anything else.
Valley View would be a neighborhood school.
Valley View would remain a neighborhood school also, and that kind of a thing. But I was just trying to think of some other method that if we can spread it out, and where we have enough classrooms at each of those buildings to hold the numbers I used the numbers from September 1st, which probably are not as close to, I don't know if they're close to the October 1st PIMS numbers or not, didn't have those kind of numbers. But that's always that's a moving target, in an attempt to have enough classrooms so that we don't immediately have to go out and start adding on or using portable classrooms that, like Joel has suggested, or something like that to get us started, because we don't know when and where some of this is going to hit us the hardest. I would think, looking at this year's numbers, we're picking up some numbers. There's no question about it. There's, kind of maybe bigger than other years. We don't know where all of this is going to happen. We're going to have to, but I don't want to see us, we have to start somewhere to look at it. And I felt this way, we maintain the buildings so we have the classrooms at least. If something comes along, we change it. Anyway, so I realize that there are transportation issues involved in this, and that, but I'd be looking to see what this model that I've proposed would look like, kind of transportation-wise. Now, if there's any changes in start times, that can also change transportation. It could change distribution of grade levels and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, that's my shot at.
So I guess I can take the charge as go forth, assume consolidation is a yes, look at the impacts and cost of two possibilities, and sell the board one way or the other. Is that fair? Fair enough for me.
Yeah.
Does that give you enough direction? Do you feel like we're just kicking the can down the road?
Yeah, because frankly,
I mean,
we're kicking it real far.
We are, and I'm trying to help you in terms of our giving you the direction that you need.
We've gotten so far.
Okay.
So that's good.
Okay.
Because frankly, I didn't know which way you guys were going to go on the consolidation concept, but I think you're going in the right direction. I truly believe that.
One comment I'd like to make, and this is more for the general public, and that is, we talked about this, the concept of consolidation versus realignment. And I just want to make sure that's clear, that because the consolidation is often a buzzword, that means cuts.
Right.
And I think of what this is not consolidation, but realignment. Though, just as long as we're clear on what we're talking about. But this is a process that's not starting a deliberation about cuts. It's a process about realigning grade levels that I take it you believe, and it looks like a preponderance of teachers believe is educationally sound. And then how the costs come out, that's what we're gonna start learning about now. And there's no sense in which this is a teacher consolidation in terms of numbers. This is a matter of bringing teachers into the same building. So is all that,
That's all correct.
that's all correct. So I just want to make sure that's all clear. And I think that word consolidation might muddy our waters a little bit. So I prefer thinking of this as a realignment. But again, that's, as long as we're all clear and the public's clear.
Because you're right, consolidation often means you're closing some building because your population has declined. We have the opposite problem. Population's growing. So your words are taken as intended, because we aren't talking about cuts. That doesn't mean we're not realizing some efficiencies in this process, because we would be. But I don't see that as cut. I see that as using our resources more wisely.
And this could very well correspond with growth, not cuts. I mean, there may be resource expansion. I mean, we don't know. It's just an open question of what...
I think that's inevitable. We're going to have more personnel to deal with the growing numbers. There's no question. So we need to be careful about how we set things up so that we can use our current resources as wisely as possible to minimize the impact of what we would need to add. That's how I've approached this whole thing.
Before you start looking at costs, do we need to discuss class size, our guidelines?
Well,
That was the one that we talked about at facilities, is one of the other key issues to whether even these numbers that I've given you, do they fit? Do we have enough classrooms to do that, even based on today's numbers?
If memory serves, that's our next decision point.
We thought that would be, before Dr. Williams goes running off.
I wouldn't set you to the task of looking at costs till we have that,
Till we have decided really.
look at the class size.
Class size.
we'll determine what would need to be done.
Where we have room to put these things, if we have room to put them, and then how do we get everybody there? Yeah, that's a...
That would be the next month.
Maybe next month we ought to do,
So take this as a soft yes.
you can start on that other if you want to. Don't go too far down, too far down the pipe. I guess we need to know class sizes, the numbers that we have versus how many classrooms do we have?
I'm not
in
sure we
buildings.
should look at classrooms, how many classrooms we have. We need to
Okay.
make a decision as to what we feel is best for class
Each of these
size.
is supposed to be driven primarily by its academic.
Academic, right. You're right.
Talk
They
about-
don't
If you
interact.
decide class size is going to be 10, and we're never going to go past that,
We got a whole
we have
ball.
a
we'll
number.
have to figure out a way to make that happen.
Okay, I agree. Okay.
I'm not recommending 10, by the way.
Yeah.
It's in the record.
I write it down. So
we
next
good-
month
we
we'll
good?
do class size.
Grateful for the feedback. Thank you.
Mr. Wiley, you Ms. Mason now?
Oh, we still have reports from administrators.
We do, yeah.
Yeah, we have Mr. Shirey, and then we're going to hear about Bright Horizons from Dr. Ketterman.
Well, thank you. There we go. So thank you for giving me to talk about the middle school a little bit. So as you know, I always like to show pictures because we've got a lot of things going on at the middle level. Upper left-hand side, we had the Scholastic Book Fair last week. It did very well. The comments, though, from public, it's slowly shrinking from Scholastic. So I don't know if the company themselves are shrinking or what, but it still was a great sale. Off to the right-hand side, well, let me go to the bottom. The bottom, leading up to our Trojan takeover, we had some spirit days. So we had football wear, we had twin, it's a little dark, but dressed like a twin. We had black and orange day, those kinds of things. And so we had a lot of student participation. Now, on Friday, we had a doubleheader for our students. We had Caught in the Middle Day, which is an event that has been around for quite a while. Dr. Krauser is very well aware of it. And we also did Trojan Takeover. Trojan Takeover was the middle school fundraiser. So in the past, fundraising used to be sell magazines, sell candy bars, things like that. About 3 years ago, they changed that to what's called the Trojan Takeover, where they just go out and they solicit from friends and family to help sponsor field trips and fun day at the end of the year and dances. So on Friday, as part of half curricular, half fun as part of a reward for the fundraising. We started with Caught in the Middle Day. We brought in 49 outside individuals, experts in their fields, you might say, and students had the ability to sign up for 4 rotations. Okay, so in those 4 rotations, they were about 40 minutes each. The top one was how to make a t-shirt. So we had friends from Susquehanna Apparel come in and showed our students, and the students did this, and they actually screen printed their own t-shirt. So anyone who signed up for that one, this is what they did. Upper right-hand corner, well, not this one, I'll point it out. This one was pulp to paper. That was an individual who was a York Suburban grad who created a business on recycling books, and he talked to us about his whole life experience. He's a young gentleman, but already had 3 major failures in his life, and yet he keeps coming back with different ideas, and all of these have been around repurposing books. So this gentleman buys probably around 4 to 5 truckloads a week of books and then recycles them. He ships them to India, he ships them to Europe, he grinds them up. He showed students how he grinds them up and makes them into a pulp, and then he sells the pulp and they make toilet paper out of it. But he makes money on doing that, and his company's right here in York, West York. Over on the right-hand side, the top right, this was how to save a life. We had, one of our husbands of one of our teachers, who's a helicopter pilot, EMT, came in and showed students how to basically do CPR. We had a golf pro come in, that's the little picture here, showed our students how to play golf. Now, I didn't say that, I didn't explain the focus. The focus of the 4 sessions, 2 of them were future careers. So we surveyed our students and got their interest in what might they want to become in the future. The other 2 were personal interests. It might be something they've never experienced before, like playing golf. A lot of our students have never played golf before. For some of you, that might be going, hey, well, I play golf all the time. Why would you bring a pro in? A lot of our students have never picked up a golf club. The other one would be a healthy living. So 2 careers, 1 personal interest, 1 healthy living. So that's why you might go golf. Why is golf in there? Or he also talked to them about how to become a golf pro and make a career out of it. This was a court reporter. This one was, this is culinary. This is how to be a chef. We brought in, if you want to drive a truck, you want to be a truck driver. So we had an individual come in and talk to us about how you drive a truck. Now, his just so happened to have a crane, and the kids loved the crane. So we gave them the remote control, and they were picking up pallets. We had electrical engineer, and we had safety dogs. So they got to experience 4 of them. They picked which ones were their top choices, and we tried to get them into one of their top 3 or 4. On the left-hand side, that was the second half of the day. That was Trojan Takeover. Again, the reward, if they were able to raise a certain number of dollars, then they were able to take over the building. And as part of taking over the building, Student Council organized a fun day where they got to go through 5 activities outside. It was you put a baseball bat and you spin around. I forget what it's called. Dizzy bat. They brought the parachutes from the elementaries. Believe it or not, I didn't know this until I saw it with my own eyes, that our middle schoolers love to still play with the elementary parachutes and then get in and pull it up over them, and it's like the big air bubble. I would not have expected a middle schooler to like that, but they did. They had a dance party on the auditorium floor. They had basketball. They had ring toss. They had sponge toss with wet sponges. So those were the fun activities that they were able to do. So that was just Friday of this week. So a lot of stuff going on at the middle school.
Cool. Good.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you. I'm here to represent elementary. I wanted to talk to you a little bit, give you an update on the Bright Horizons program. We're in the 5th year of our partnership this year. So we originally developed a contract with Bright Horizons for 3 years, and then we did renew it for a 2-year term. So we're in our 5th year right now, and that automatically renews for another 2 years unless we choose to do otherwise. So we did just meet with them recently. Dr. Williams got to meet the leadership team and the district leaders, and at this point, we are going to continue to renew with them for another 2 years. We thought that was best, given our state of trying to determine how we're, managing the buildings and whatnot. So some recent updates and changes that they have had, they did design a new leadership structure that's been very beneficial. We have the one director that was vacillating between the 3 programs, really, at the 3 different buildings, and what they've done was they've hired 2 people as educational coordinators, one for the east side, one for the west side, and they are permanently in those facilities, spending half of their time as administrators and half in the classroom. So that really allows the director to play more of a director role and administrative role than having to always serve time in the classroom and trying to troubleshoot at all of the buildings. So that's been very beneficial. I'm proud to report that all of the programs have attained Keystone Star 4 status, which is out of 4 stars, so they have all attained that. They've increased and improved some of their communication systems. They have a Facebook presence now, and then they also have a program called My Bright Day that's a communication system with parents that they can communicate daily. The teachers try to give some kind of report on students, in particular the preschoolers. And also they've been partnering with York Tech for their York Tech has a Bright Horizons as well, and they also service infants and toddlers. We start our program at 3 years old. So we've kind of coordinated something where they can start their programming there and then come over to our program. So that's been beneficial as well. So the enrollment right now, we have our preschools are full. We don't have any, when they're working with childcare, there's people who sometimes do the full week, and then there's others who might do Tuesday, Thursday, and some do Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and whatnot. So we no longer have any full week slots open. We have some Monday, Tuesday slots and some Thursday, Fridays, but no Wednesdays, that kind of thing. So that's what the status is of preschool. And in the school age, we actually have students on a waiting list at both facilities, both at East York, Indian Rock, East York and Valley View, Indian Rock. Space-wise, because I know we are looking at space, I wanted to make sure you were aware, we have 2 designated classrooms, both at Yorkshire and Valley View, a 3-year-old room and a 3-year-old or K-Prep room. Those are designated classrooms for Bright Horizons. At Valley View, we're able to give a 3rd room that's used for school age before and after school care. Yorkshire doesn't have that luxury, so they do some really swift configuration, and they're moving students from one room to the other. And then, of course, both buildings and East York use some of the general, they use the library, or they might use the gym, they use the playground, those kind of facilities, but not a designated space. East York has a shared space that they do not have a designated room. They share it with the wellness teacher that meets there. One of the things I did ask for some reports from our current kindergarten teachers as to how are these students performing academically. And they were proud to say that 85% of the students from Bright Horizons are performing at average or above average. More specifically, 40% were above average, 45% were average. So that was pleasant to hear. As far as profit sharing, our profit sharing portion has changed through the years. Our first contract, it went from 15 to 20% to 30%. Our 2-year contract that we're currently in is 40 and 40%. So the first 2 years, if you recall, we did not make much of a profit. We had to pay for playground equipment and a lot of the furniture and whatnot. Our only scholarshiping that we were able to do was just through what was called CCIS then, and then it was Child Care Consultants, and now it's ELRS, I think, Early Learning Resource Center, that we would help to supplement. That's an agency downtown that helps to supplement families that are having financial hardship with their child care. And there's a host of regulations that they have to meet, but they don't pay the entire portion. So we would help by supplementing and paying whatever portion they did not pay. Those are the first 2 years. So after the third year, when we did realize, was when we had 30% of the profit and we realized $54,219, we were able to start offering scholarships. So we offered 4 scholarships, 2 at each of the K-Prep, 2 at Valley View, 2 at Yorkshire. So a scholarship basically is about $10,000, and that includes their tuition, and also we pay Whitson's for their lunch ticket for the year as well. Then so that's $40,000. We reserve $10,000 every year for that whole idea of a hardship, that should a family come upon a hardship, that one of their parents loses their job, or they have a fire in their home, or if there's something that they just need some assistance for a month or, a period of time until they get back on their feet, we have it for that. Or in case there's any of those, again, CCIS families that need some supplemental income. After the third year, we did not need to use that $10,000, so we then turned it around and used it for summer camp scholarships. And we were able to give 4 school-age kids from the primary center a summer camp scholarship so that they could attend the summer camp. So this past year, when we also had 40% of the profit, we did wonderfully. We have realized $116,898, $116,898 as profit. We again offered 4 scholarships, 2 to each of the buildings, and then we have the $10,000 again that's on reserve. One thing that we've learned in the process is we kind of have to let them know, again, as I said, because I went back to them to see, if there's a possibility, or if you would, say, what are we doing with the rest of that money? We right now don't have a full-time position available in preschool to offer. We kind of need to let them know what seats we want to reserve, how many seats we want to reserve in about March or April. And so we reserved the 4 to be safe, and so now we have, some extra money that we're going to need to determine how that should be utilized. So, any questions?
I remember when we were doing all the preliminary work on this eons ago. Your big concern was that that this program would be for, for those who are underserved. Do you think we're getting to that? I mean, just saying that we only have 4 scholarships, I did not realize what tuition was at Bright. I should, but I didn't. So, I wish we had more money to give if we're actually trying to serve underserved children.
Right, and we do it by an application process.
Mm-hmm.
So we put it out to, in several different avenues,
mm-hmm.
to have them apply. So that's part of it. We have to have people apply.
Yeah, always.
We weren't overwhelmed with the number of applications. So again, when it comes time this year, we're going to try to look at some different ways we can get the word out.
Get the word to people who really could not otherwise afford
Correct.
this program.
And we do it all during kindergarten registration time too. They kind of all overlap where,
mm-hmm.
This principals are meeting with each family and, certainly offering that as an option.
This coming spring, the first class from Bright Horizons is in 3rd grade, or are they only in 2nd grade? Give me a clue. I think they'll be in 3rd. I'm anxious to see what their testing scores will. I'd be interested to hear from you at this time next year to see how these children are doing.
Right.
Yeah, I think that wasn't part of this discussion, but it would be interesting because a few years ago, we had the big discussion about full-day kindergarten as well.
And what it was going to do.
So now, it comes time to take a look and see if it's measurable.
So, and I had a community member ask me, at what point on the calendar do they need to start reserving spots in either of these after-school programs or do they fill up that quickly? Like, I mean, you hear horror stories of that, at the moment of conception, you have to reserve your spot at the, daycare center or something. I mean, is there...
I'd say, I'd have to look into that.
Okay, I'm just curious,
They do fill up, but I think they keep, I know they always have a running waiting list.
Okay.
I don't know what happens at the end of every year. I don't know if as long as you re-up, because they tell the parents.
Okay.
You need to
We get plenty of
deposit
those.
for the following year.
So it's not a big rush. It's not like the 3-year-olds, if normal registration time for a 3-year-old in this program, I could get that 3-year-old in and
Showing that it's a preschool,
okay. Okay.
or like I said, or
I just-
for the before and after school.
Yeah, I just had no clue how it worked, and someone asked me, so I thought I would ask you. Thank you.
I see a question in your eyes.
Well, the math was 116,898 profit, 4 scholarships at 10,000 apiece,
Right.
and a $10,000 reserve. So where does the surplus go?
Good question. We got some ideas.
But is it in the general fund? Is it earmarked?
Oh, it's, I think we have to show it as revenue, I think, don't we?
That's
Correct.
okay. So general fund, if no other.
Is it worth looking at more scholarships? I mean,
Well, I think
plowing it
I
back
would love
into
some
the
direction on that. I think, you know,
Yeah.
when we started this, I don't know that we anticipated
That
that
kind
kind
of
of a
money.
profit.
Yeah.
You know, and that's,
Or
that
underwriting
was the will
additional
of the board.
kindergarten teachers.
Or social worker.
So you're using it as
But that becomes a way to.
Revenue stream.
It's a revenue stream
Revenue.
for
I'm
the
not saying
general
take away
fund.
the scholarships, I'm saying keep the
No, I
scholarships.
understand that. I'm not trying to say that either, but there's a significant surplus here.
Well, of course, the time may come, sadly, that we have to fill up those classrooms with kindergarteners or first graders, and then that profit goes away because the program's not as full, or in existence even, perhaps. So we can't, get
Right.
too comfortable with it.
It's not a forever stream of revenue.
That's what I'm saying, looking at scholarships, maybe if there is a need, and I don't know, you would know that better. You as
Oh,
a program
I-
people would know that there's, so you can figure it out.
I think there's a need, I think we need to get them to apply. We tried to keep the application so
I-
simple,
yeah.
so we just need to get them to provide transportation. So sometimes that could be a glitch for some. Thank you.
Business office report.
Should I do that?
Yeah, that would
You got a lot going on.
Thank you.
I'll take over for Corinne tonight. The administration recommends board approval of the resolution authorizing the incurrence of non-electoral debt by the issuance of general obligation bonds series 2019 in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $26,285,000 for the purpose of currently refunding all or a portion of the outstanding York Suburban School District general obligation bonds series 2012, 2013, 2014, and 2015, and to pay all costs and expenses of issuance of the bonds.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, comments? We have the expert in the stands there.
So I'm going to turn it over to Lauren for
Okay.
RBC first to give you a presentation on
Okay.
bonds.
Good evening, everyone. I'll be very brief because most of you were here last month when Ken and I came to present the refinancing opportunities for the 4 aforementioned series of bonds. Just as an update, we have been working with your business office in getting all of the documentation put together, and we actually have a rating call scheduled for Wednesday, I believe, of next week. Should be a brief call since we did a bond issue earlier this year. It'll just be a refresher for Standard & Poor's to take a look at your credit. And the good news is that interest rates have actually kind of come back down in the last 3 weeks or so since we last met. So the savings number is a little higher than what Ken and I reviewed with you last time. And we're probably looking closer to about $350,000 versus the $200 and maybe $30,000 that we reviewed last month. So all good news. I'll let Attorney Havas talk a little bit more about the resolution, but I'm happy to answer any questions in regard to the numbers themselves before I turn it over.
Thank you.
Good evening, Steve Hobbs on behalf of Stock Meter, and I heard what the board had to say, precision and brevity. So I'm going to go through a 28-page resolution pretty quickly. You do have that in your packet. I would make one correction to what's in the motion, that we're actually issuing the Series A of 2019 bonds, because if you recall earlier in the year, you actually issued your Series of 2019 bonds for a prior transaction. So we're going to name these the Series A of 2019, which just reflects it's the second bond issue in the year. The resolution provides a summary on page 1 of the entire 28 pages, but as noted, you're basically authorizing the incurrence of your 2019 bonds to do the 4 refundings. Now, the principal amount that's noted in the motion, once you go to market and actually issue the bonds, is going to be less, because this is a parameters approval, and I think RBC explained that concept to you in the past. On page 29 in paragraph 6, really the key factor in that approval is the parameter that you have to receive at least a 1% debt service savings when you go to market. So therefore, if the market moves away from you and it doesn't make it worth your time to actually refund the bonds, you would not be authorized to issue the bonds. You're noting TD Bank as your paying agent. They've been the paying agent in the past, identifying Stock and Leader as your bond counsel. You're authorizing the execution of a bond purchase agreement with RBC Capital Markets, which basically sets forth the parameters for the bond purchase. And you're authorizing your officers to take any and all action necessary to get to a closing later this year. So that, and you're actually authorizing, you're approving the plan of refunding for the 4 bonds. Quickly, brief, I don't know how precise, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So without comment, can we have a roll call vote?
Schrader,
Yes.
Posnow,
Yes?
Sears, Gillette,
Yes.
Fryrick,
Yes.
Sanders.
Yes.
Oh, Robinson.
I would skip
Yes.
Corinne does it better.
All right, and items recommended for approval at the voting meeting? Thank you very much.
I'm just going to hang on and get some signatures after the meeting.
All right. Items recommended for approval on October 21st. These are coming out of committee, I believe. And there's a truck purchase with a trading in of the 2005 vehicle. Extending the auditing contract for the 3 years. And the third item is to get some evaluation of the stadium for some repair work, or potential improvement work. Not repair work, improvement work.
Questions about any of those? That comes up next session.
Yeah, we vote next time. Not a Monday's meeting, not at the special meeting.
Right. 21st.
21st. All right, informational?
Joel.
Yeah, is the $30,000 net of the trade-in value, or does that?
I think that's a total cost. With the
Right.
trade-in, yeah. With the
Okay.
trade-in, yep. Yeah, total cost out of pocket with the trade-in. Informational, donation in the amount of $895.34 from the Valley View PTO for Orange and Black Valley View elementary shirts for staff and students. And another donation of cheer items from Spring Garden Township consisting of pom-poms, bloomers, ribbon, ponytail holders, cheer socks, and trophies. The approximate value is $882.92. That concludes Ms. Mason's report.
Thank you. Ms. Geyer.
I would like to begin my report with the elementary school events. So on Saturday, October 5th, the annual Indian Rock Fall Festival happened. So the event went very well, had great success, so thank you to the PTO and the student volunteers for a fun day for the Indian Rock students. On Friday, September 27th, was the annual Teddy Bear Parade at Valley View and at Yorkshire, and overall was very fun for the students. Fall sports are winding down into postseason. Football is still undefeated and just had a great game against Dover, 46-6.
Woohoo!
Cross country boys are currently first in the state with 16-0. Girls are 10th in the state, 12-0. Golf just finished 4th in the YAI AA division. Field hockey is 3-12. Girls soccer 10-6. Boys soccer, who is currently second in the YAI AA division, is 11-3-1 and has a possible guaranteed spot at districts. Girls tennis, 6 and 7. Alexandra Clancy represented us well, won the first round and then lost the second. And doubles today, our girls also won the first round and lost the second in all of their games. Girls volleyball is currently 10 and 2, just qualified for counties and possibly districts. The Gold Out Games for Mini Thon went very well and sold roughly around 400 shirts, and profits all go to 4 Diamonds. Showcase with the marching band at Red Lion on September 28th went very well, and they said that it was the best they played all year. And also, on Monday, October 28th, York Suburban High School's National Honor Society is hosting a trunk or treat for everyone in the community to attend. Thank you.
The swim practice started yet?
Yes. No.
You have before you the committee meeting schedule posted online. Facilities Committee, Ms. Farrig.
Yes, you have before you the minutes of the September 11th meeting for your perusal. At our meeting just last week, we talked about something that you've seen already, and that's the evaluation of the stadium bleachers by Turf Track and Field or something like that. Hopefully, that will be done in the next couple of months. We had pretty much a final report on the 18-19 projects. For some reason, some of the contractors are rather slow to be submitting their final invoices, but that's fine. We get the money, make the interest on it, and they'll get around to doing their billing eventually. And then we received a rather informational list on the 1920 possible projects, which the administration is going to be looking at various architects, engineers, and other contractors to get some proposals and see where we stand with those. Hopefully to begin moving on getting bid documents ready and moving forward with that right after the first of the year so that we can get some reasonable bids on some of these projects. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Mr. Robbins.
Thank you, Mr. Posnell. Item 1, the administration recommends board approval of the job descriptions and the establishment of school police chief and school police officer to be funded by Pennsylvania School Safety and Security Grant for the remainder of the 2019-2020 school year and the entire 2020-2021 school year. Chair will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Comments, discussion?
John, if I'm, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Lois.
No, you go ahead and you raise your hand first.
Well, I have lots to share, so if you care to go first, please feel free to do that.
Okay. I just wanted to share a couple of things after watching the video deliberation from the last meeting that I missed. I had a couple of things I wanted to share before we vote. I am normally not very good at extemporaneous thought here, so I did write some things down. The honest deliberation was so obvious, and I appreciate that and respect all the different opinions that everybody expressed. It's not an easy topic, and we as a group have some understandable reservations. The one common thread that I heard was, do we have a need? I don't really see that we have a need for these two positions. Well, it's extremely difficult to provide tangible data about the need and effectiveness of on-site law enforcement. Numbers really aren't available. Unfortunately, this isn't an assembly line production. There really aren't before and after numbers. But it's obvious that we need to provide a safe environment for our students and staff. We need to be proactive about safety. Reacting after an emergency would obviously be wrong, just not the way to govern. Our faculty and the parents of our students were surveyed, and both groups said yes. Those who are in the trenches, charged with educating and even protecting our students on a daily basis, see the need. They support this idea, as do the mothers and fathers who entrust their children to the district every day. Both groups overwhelmingly support the hiring of the police officers. We received a very well-written and thought-provoking letter from one of our high school department chairs this week, supporting these positions. She knows firsthand what it feels like to execute a lockdown and not know if it's the real thing or just a drill. It's hard for some to imagine what that feels like. She knows firsthand what it's like to be the only thing between God knows what and her students, to be the one protecting those 25 or 30 young lives in her classroom. Her wise words should carry some weight with this board. I'm thinking we should value the opinions of the professionals. It's obvious that school safety is a complex issue, and our people deserve to feel safe at school. Effective school police officers can certainly be a key element in a good school safety plan. We already have a number of safety measures in place: controlled access entries in our buildings, anti-bullying programs, security cameras, safety drills, crisis management plans. We have a lot of things in place, but on-site law enforcement in public schools has sadly become the norm in today's world. Some of us have a hard time accepting this fact, but it's true. We're in the minority in this regard. All other districts, right here in York County, have SROs or SPOs, but not York Suburban. Heaven forbid we have an emergency in one of our schools, and we as a board didn't do everything we could do to have mitigated such an emergency. Those circumstances scare me and would leave the board on untenable ground. Here's where we are. We have the opportunity to hire 2 police officers courtesy of state grant at no additional cost to our community. Could be an ideal situation. Think of it as seed money. Get the program up and running. See how it goes for 18 or so months. See how much of the Act 44 state regs can be taken off the shoulders of our assistant superintendent, giving him more time to do his real job. Evaluate the program at the end of the grant and proceed from there. I agree that adding police officers to our payroll will be a big shift in the culture here at York Suburban. I hate the very idea of it. But I do believe it's where we are in today's world, and we simply can't hide our proverbial heads in the sand and ignore it. We need that layer of protection. I share the concern about the high cost and agree that Harrisburg should adequately fund our schools. No argument there. And that includes school safety. They shouldn't leave it on the shoulders of the local taxpayer. And yes, it will be hard to pay for this program down the road. Probably even more difficult to eliminate it if that's what we chose to do. But for me, it's negligent to turn this money down. I'd rather have the difficult conversation down the road in 2021 than say no to this money tonight. Yes, it's a lot of money, and I'd rather spend it on teachers or librarians or nurses or social workers. But I agree with the parents, teachers, and administrators who all support the idea. I think it's the prudent and sensible thing to do. Thanks.
Okay. Roseanne, I really appreciate very much what you said. I think you make a compelling argument. What I guess we also need to look at, though, is the fact that there have been many, many, many studies, including the one that was referred to in the letter from the faculty member. I took some time and checked out in quite a bit of detail the first 50 or 60 pages of that and then thumbed through the rest of it. The first 50 or 60 really talked to the rationale and the findings in that study. And just to give you an example of what was found, under the heading of reduction of school crime, the evidence on the relationship between the presence, in this case it was SROs, but in the presence of SROs in schools and the reduction in crime and/or serious violence is conflicting. And you can go through this study and essentially find that there's no conclusive evidence of really value in the things that we keep talking about. It essentially comes to a perception of safety, not the creation of safety, but the perception of safety. And so my question would be, what we do as a board and as a school district to create the situation that we're trying to mitigate. And it might sound a little weird, but in a way it's like an academic form of Munchausen's, where we create the stress, we create the situation, we scare our kids, and then we say we need social workers and school police officers to mitigate that. Maybe we should think about backing off some of these stressors, at least figure out what these basic stressors are before we start creating more cures for that. The perception of safety thing was very interesting to me in this study. And among the things that were stated was that interactions with SROs did not affect perceptions of safety. The authors felt that these findings could be due to the fact that only half the students in the sample reported interacting with SROs. Now, just to give you some perspective, if you didn't take the time to read the study or didn't have the time, this was done in Canada, in a suburb of Toronto, and it really addressed 5 high schools. So it was high school populations, which were the tough cases. 2 of these high schools are essentially majority immigrant, if you look at the way the study was written. So from that standpoint, the demographic doesn't really match ours at all. When they started interviewing kids, and they spent 30, 40, 50 pages on interview results, there were 8 kids who were interviewed. Not 800, 8. And then when we finally get to this idea, the claimant letter was that there was something like an $11 to $1 return. For every $1 that was invested in school resource officers, there was an $11 return. Well, that's based on a concept called something called a social return on investment. And in order for that to work, the researchers had to create some kind of a proxy value for the events that they were referring to. So as an example, they identify a stakeholder. In this case, the stakeholder is the student at risk of being victimized. Well, that would be most kids. The outcome that they're looking for is, as a result of some intervention, reduced anxiety as a result of not being worried about becoming a victim of crime. The number of students reaching that outcome was 185, and this is the interesting one. The value of not being worried about being victimized was stated at $13,338 per person per year. So that created $2.5 million worth of proxy value by reducing the anxiety. Now, that's the sort of thing that I look at from the standpoint of claims that are made. An 11 to 1 return, well, yeah, I could make it 20 to 1 if I made that $20,000 per event. There's absolutely no rationale for the claim that was made. One of the others that I thought was very interesting was that included in the return was the ability to give the school resource officer a higher potential for earning because of the great experience they get as an SRO. They become more valuable, and that gets counted as return to the community somehow. So you keep adding up all of these factors, and you come up with some proxy to offset the money that's actually being spent to bring these people into the system. Well, if we're going to buy into that, let's also talk about the social cost of doing this. If we, for example, want to talk about creating trauma or stress in the community, one way to do that is to raise taxes. And there are plenty of people who react negatively, and they really worry about where they're going to get the money to pay taxes. If we bring this program in and we don't think very seriously about how we're going to fund it in the future, and I know it's not all about money, but it's interesting to me that the researchers used a money proxy to try to justify that ROI. But for us, the challenge is to make sure that whatever we do, that we believe we're doing the right thing going in, that we really think it's going to be effective. The evidence in that one report, which was pretty well researched and well footnoted, is not compelling. The perception of safety was mixed bag on that. The perception of positive and negative impact of SROs was a mixed bag. And that troubles me. If somebody had come to me and said, look, this stuff is really compelling, this is what really happens, I'd be fine. But that's not what the study says. And yet that's the one that our faculty member used to justify, or at least try to help us justify a yes vote on this. We have 2 professional police forces. Maybe this doesn't count for much, but on Saturday I witnessed what I thought was exactly the kind of thing that we're talking about when I was at the JCC. A Springersbury Township policeman walked in, or York Township, I don't know what department he was with, but could have been a York Township policeman. But he was an armed policeman who walked into the facility and started interacting with the kids. He wasn't there to respond to a call of any kind. He was there to build relationships. And one of the kids said, do you come here a lot? And he said, oh yeah, I'm here 3 or 4 times a week. Oh, it's sure nice to see you. So in that sense, I think we already have access to that kind of support from our local police departments. And if we don't, I think we can nurture it. We already pay for that. We have 2 highly trained professional police forces. And maybe it's partnering with them that really should be a reasonable first step before we decide that we need to have our own in-house police department. One of the things that we try diligently to do in this school district is to get our constituents, our students, everybody to be critical thinkers. And I think a lot of the evidence that we're talking about from a critical thinking standpoint belies the value of these school police officers. It's not to say there isn't any, but I'm suggesting that in order for us to go down this path, we could take maybe a baby step and nurture relationships with the local police departments to start this trust thing, if that's really the piece of it that we think is so compelling. And with that, I would strongly suggest that we think twice before we vote yes for this program. I just don't think the value's there.
Other thoughts? Steve?
Well, let me start by reviewing how we got here. The grant application that included the SPO surprised me, and I asked about it, and the response was, there's a very low probability that we would have the grant accepted, but if we got it, we do not need to accept that part of the grant, and we can accept the other parts of the grant. And so the grant, in fact, was accepted, and here we are debating and voting on the issue. I've offered my views on this at prior meetings where I've discussed this at length. So I have no surprises in my remarks, but I did miss the last meeting where this was discussed. I watched the video of it, but I think I should make some remarks here in this setting. So with all the information I'd like to convey where I stand on this. On the firearm, introducing firearms into the public schools raises risks that an innocent person will be inadvertently hurt with that firearm. So my question is, what could justify introducing that into the environment? And when I look at the probabilities, it's highly remote that a firearm would ever be used in one way or the other. But my belief is that there is little evidence that it would help in a catastrophic situation, and there are real risks that it could do more harm than good. But we are talking minuscule probabilities in either direction. When I look at this position, what this position is for, the job duties are really unrelated to this issue. So I believe that this reinforces my initial frame. The arguments that the district identifies for this position do not require the carrying of a firearm, in my view. Our debate isn't happening in a vacuum. Huge resources are being poured into armed personnel in our public schools that are becoming permanent fixtures in the public school setting. As far as I can see, there is not a showing that these new positions show corresponding benefits that justify the huge sums of money. It means less teachers, or more taxes, or both. With that said, I could be persuaded that for York Suburban right now, it's a good idea if there was some special reason. I'm interested in looking at York Suburban on its own terms, but I don't see that reason. Here's what I see. We have 2 police departments ideally located. If there is any district well situated for protection by our police, it's ours. As far as I know, it's a very good relationship. If there is a sense that security could improve, I ask the district to build on that relationship and show us how to deepen those relationships with our current police departments. We are paying for that service through our taxes. I want our York Suburban resources to be going to teaching positions and being sure classroom sizes are appropriate. We're looking at a district that will have increasing pressures to hire teachers, and that's where I think we need to focus. The district solicited views on SPOs, and I appreciated that. There is significant support for these positions. But I'd also like to point out that approximately 25% of teachers reported to be somewhat to very concerned about having an armed officer as a York Suburban employee. That's not trivial. So I think it's fair to say that I'm standing with that cohort. I'd also like to note that the current process, funneled through the grant application, has not allowed us to analyze opportunity costs. As it stands now, if we approve the grant as presented before us today, with a low bar of justification, there is no principled end to moving education monies away from core education into security-related measures in the face of excellent police forces already supporting York Suburban. I don't think this is right for the district, and so I will vote no on this. Now, this doesn't lay out all of my considerations, but it does sum them up. I did listen to the debate that we had 2 weeks ago that I wasn't able to attend, and I would like to say I have a great deal of respect for all the members of the school board and their careful deliberations. I don't consider disagreement unhealthy, and in fact, I value how our board engages in civic discourse. We need models of good civic discourse in our community, and I just want to say that I'm glad to be part of a district that is always aiming for that kind of discourse, both at the instructional level, both with the students, and that we try to do that here at the school board as well. So those are my remarks.
Okay, I guess my view is that I cannot in good conscience vote against a fully funded opportunity to help us evaluate possible improvements to the safety of our students. So I will vote yes, whether it passes or not, because I believe any steps we can take to potentially improve that position is a win, especially if it's a study that's no additional cost to our taxpayers. So that's all I have. Thoughts? No more?
I would just say that you and Lois Ann have referred to the fact there's no additional cost. There are costs to the district because there's training and transportation that are not included in the grant. They may be minimal, but there are costs involved for
the pilot involved. I would argue that's in the noise. So, we have a roll call vote, please.
Is it too late to chime in?
It's twice we've left you out tonight.
That's okay.
Pretty soon you're going to get insulted.
Perfectly understandable. This is a rare occurrence when I think you want to vote maybe, or I don't know. The arguments that I've heard on both sides are reasonable, they're rational. On one side, I think we have arguments that are structured basically around emotion, and on the other side, it's basically around analytical logic, and both of them have great merit. Sadly, I mean, we are living in a world where there are individuals who consider schools and churches and mosques and synagogues soft targets. And that, to me, it's a sign of a malignancy within our greater society that we have to address. Putting more guns in schools is not the long-term solution for it, but there is a short-term solution. Voting yes for this grant also gives us the opportunity within our district to evaluate just how worthwhile these positions are for our student body, for our faculty, and for our greater community. At the end of 2 years, I think there's a fear that we are going down a tunnel, a slippery slope, that no matter what happens in Harrisburg, we will keep these positions in place. I don't think that necessarily follows. At the end of the grant period, we may well decide that we really don't need a school police chief or a school police officer. It's not cast in stone. The argument that once we get them, we'll always have them, I don't think flies. And the reason I would say that is when we went through the debate for a social worker, you know, the fear becomes, well, if you get one, you're going to have another one. Then you're going to have one in every building. Well, there's a point of reasonableness, if that's a word, where you have to say we've got to do the best with what we've got. Yeah, a social worker in every building would be a great addition, but we can't do that. We can only do what we can do. So on that basis, I think looking at these two positions, having them in place for 1.5 to 2 years, I think is a reasonable solution, given the fact that at the end of that period, especially if there's no more funding in Harrisburg, we have to cut them. That's just the reality of it. We're an educational institution or organization, not a law enforcement one. I mean, if we're really serious about school security, we should form our own militia and have camps at every school with armored personnel carriers and machine gun nests at every entrance. That's insane and gives into a level of paranoia that we're already at risk of giving into. That's all I've got.
Sears,
No.
Robinson,
Yes, under protest.
Gillette,
No.
Schrader,
Yes.
Tosno,
Yes.
Sanders,
No.
Fryrick.
No.
Send the money back.
Well, on to a less contentious item. You have before you the consent addenda, you have before you the personnel report, which includes resignations and employment. Would any board member like any of these items considered separately, or are there any questions on any of these items? If not, the chair moves approval of the below-mentioned items.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Questions or comments? This can be a unanimous roll call vote.
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes.
And before I close, Mr. President, I'd just like to say that Carla Kaufman is with us this evening. We'd like to acknowledge her. Carla?
Do you have a legislative update?
Legislative update. Well, falling back on our initial discussion of school personnel and security officers, Mr. Sears, Dr. Williams, and I are deliberating and coming to the conclusion that we should visit our good friends in Harrisburg to voice some of the concerns that we've all shared with one another tonight, and possibly schedule a meeting with the Secretary of Education, maybe even the governor. But to really share the concerns that we've expressed, and really to reinforce the idea that adding weaponry to a school is not a position of strength, it's a position of weakness. And there's got to be a better way to go about achieving school security and school safety. And that is certainly the job of the legislature and the governor's office as well as ours. More to follow.
Ms. Ferrari.
Okay, you have before you the Dawn's Early Light from the LIU for your perusal. Also, I would add that the Joint Operating Committee met last week, and we are, again, doing a little bit of touch-up on the roof there at the Learning Center, as well as we are updating the facility study as we move forward to see what other issues need to be taken care of at the Learning Center. And moving on to the York Adams Academy report, I am very pleased to report that the district has purchased 3 additional seats for this year at the York Adams Academy, and they are full, so we are now 15 out of 15, and we still have 1 on the waiting list to come to York Adams Academy. We continue to have a really good turnout by our students each week to the number of seminars and information sessions that we have from places that they can continue their educations, things like Thaddeus Stevens and YTI and things like that. So we are very pleased to offer that to our students. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Did anybody go to the York Adams Tax Bureau? No report. Ms. Schrader.
Yes, just 2 points I wanted to share with you from the School of Technology. The budget preparation is well underway, and the preliminary budget will be presented to the county superintendents, I think, later this week. And just so you are aware, construction for the new gymnasium groundbreaking took place, and construction has begun, so it is going to happen.
Timeframe on that, Lois?
I couldn't tell you.
Curiosity.
Do you know, James?
The original completion date was supposed to be September 16th, 2020.
That's a year, 15 months, something like that.
Building permits in hand. Contract amount, $9.1 million. You know, again, they're saying a year, but if we have a horrendous winter,
Yeah.
kind of tough to excavate.
Might not happen, yeah. But that concludes my report, unless you have something else to add, James.
Thank you for sitting through us tonight. Thank you for your patience. The board meeting schedule is posted online, and this is your last opportunity for public comment.
Throw your name in the hat for school board. You join us often, so just come on and be a part.
One item I forgot.
know that yesterday at church, somebody saw a post on my daughter's Facebook page that said I should be on the school board.
There you go.
I was not on the school board, even though she thought I was, but I can't do it this time. So my name will not be in that, although I'd love to sit in next week.
Monday night, across the way.
Actually, it's in here.
Was it in here?
In here.
Wow.
Here.
Here? Is there a limit, after X amount of people, we won't do it here?
Well, yeah, if we get 20 people.
Okay, I'm just curious, okay.
I apologize to the board. There was one item I forgot. For your information, the governor has appointed or is putting together a task force on suicide prevention that will be sending a delegation to York this Thursday to the JCC. I think the start time is 5:30 or so. Anybody who wants more information, please give me a buzz. The good news is I can't be there that night. I have a previous commitment, so the field will be open.
Why is that the good news?
Pardon?
Why is that the good news?
Because I won't be muddying the waters with it.
And on that up note, I guess we're adjourned. Thank you.